I mean, yeah, it's a good lesson. All right, so speaking of which, we can go ahead and get started because I think we have most everybody in. It's so great to see all of y'all. We have a really good turnout today. So thank y'all so much for coming. We're not going to do the crafts as the first thing. We're going to do like we usually do and do that kind of a little bit later. But if while I'm starting to talk, you want to make sure that you have all of your handouts and everything ready, then that would be great. So just make sure that you have those ready. And we'll go ahead and get started. So we are talking about the moon and stars today. So I hope y'all are excited. I personally love talking about this type of thing. So we're going to start with the moon, and then later on we'll talk about stars a little bit. So who can tell me what the moon is to start off with? Grayson.
The moon is a giant. Well, this is what most of people think. The moon is a giant piece of the earth, which was the Pacific Ocean. It's the same size.
Wow, yeah, that's actually a little bit more specific than I was even expecting. So good job. So we're not entirely sure how the moon formed, but something like what you're describing is what people generally tend to think. It's probably a little piece of the earth that broke off millions of years, billions of years ago, really. It would have been a really long time ago. So they think that basically a really big other planet or rock or asteroid of some sort hit the earth, and all of the dust that kind of got kicked up when that happened just formed itself into what is now the moon. So it was just kind of a bunch of dust that gathered together because of the Earth's gravitational pull, and it formed our moon. And the moon is also just like a term for any smaller body that orbits around a planet, but we only have one of them, so we just call it the moon. There's another planet, I think it's Jupiter, that has like 6 moons. So those each have a name, but we just have one, so we just call it the moon.
10 moons.
What was that?
10 moons.
10 moons. Yeah. Okay. You can fact check me on stuff then, because I'm not going to quite remember all of this. So thank you. 10 moons. So the moon is what we call a satellite. Can anybody tell me what that word means? Grayson?
A satellite is something that humans launch up in a rocket ship that orbits around planets and the Earth that takes pictures.
It can be, yeah, that's one definition of a satellite. But a satellite is really just any smaller object that's rotating the Earth. So that might be something man-made, that might be something that we sent up there, like you're talking about. We sometimes use them to take pictures, or it can also be something like the moon that's naturally made. It's just basically a big hunk of rock, but it's orbiting the Earth just like the satellites that we launch into space. So we still call that a satellite, and it's the only natural one that we have. So the moon orbits the Earth because of a concept called gravity. Can anybody tell me what gravity is? Journey, what do you think?
I think it's just gravity keeps everything down on the ground.
Yeah, that's right. So gravity is basically the reason why when you throw something up in the air, it falls back towards the ground. And it just is the pull that any really large object is going to have on smaller objects. So the Earth keeps all of us kind of in its pull because the Earth is so huge. And the moon gets stuck in the Earth's gravitational pull because the moon gets caught in our pull because the moon just isn't quite as large as the Earth. So the moon is large enough to have its own gravity, and that's actually the reason that the moon moves the tides. So y'all probably knew that about the moon, that it moves the water on the Earth around and it affects the tides. And that's because the moon does have its own gravity. It's not strong enough for it to affect the Earth really any more than that, but it does affect the tides and the water on the Earth. So let's see what else. I kind of mentioned this, but what do y'all think the moon is made of? Let's see.
Dust.
Yeah, you're right. So it's basically dust. It's made of similar things to what the Earth is made of. So rocks, metals. Did you say cheese? There's that song, The Moon is Made of Cheese. Yeah, it's unfortunately the moon is not actually made of cheese. That sure would be, yeah, it would be a lot more fun though. I would like that a lot. Cheese is one of my favorite things. But yeah, the moon is actually made of rocks and metal, just like the Earth is.
And
a lot of
tastes good.
Yeah, no, it definitely wouldn't taste good. But yeah, it's made of similar things to all of the other planets, just that mixture of rocks and dust and metal. Now, how big do y'all think the moon is?
The size of the Pacific Ocean.
A fourth of the Earth?
Yeah, y'all are pretty close. So the size of the Pacific Ocean is pretty specific. About a fourth of the Earth. It might be a little bit smaller than that in total. If I can get this to work, I'm going to show y'all a little size comparison that I've done.
Okay.
So let me share my screen. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
I do.
Great. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up this
This thing on the side out there.
The moon, if we were to do a really good size comparison, is to put a green pea next to a nickel, and the green pea would represent the moon and the nickel would represent the Earth. So I tried to do the sizing. The pea is about a third as wide as the Earth, but I mean, that's pretty big. I don't know about y'all, but when I think about the moon, I don't think about it being quite that big in relation to the Earth, but it's actually relatively large. So yeah, that's a good size comparison that you can do, is a nickel and a pea. And who wants to guess how far away the Earth is from the moon? Grayson?
About like 100 miles or so. No, not. Isn't it like 2,300 something miles?
It's even more than that. It is 238,855 miles away, which is why you might not think of it as being as big as it is. It looks pretty small in the sky because it's really, really far away. So that distance means that 30 Earth-sized planets could actually fit between the Earth and the moon. So we're pretty far away from our moon. We've got a pretty big gravitational pull. Now, why can we see the moon at night? Does the moon make its own light, or where does its light come from? Carter?
The sun.
It comes from the sun, and the moon reflects the sun's light.
It bounces off.
That's right. Yes, the moon does reflect the sun's light, so that's why we can see it at night. Now, do y'all know why the moon looks like it's a different shape every night? Serenity, did you have an idea?
She's gonna let some other people talk to us, Katie.
I had a question.
Yes.
Where's Mai? Did Mai get out?
Why can you see the moon in the day but not the sun at night?
So the reason you can sometimes see the moon during the day is it just depends on where it is in the sky, and it'll still reflect a little bit of the sun's light during the day. But the reason you can't see the sun at night, basically once the sun has gone down or it's gone behind the Earth, or so far, or really the Earth has turned so far that we're not facing the sun anymore, then you're just not going to see the sun. Once the light has kind of disappeared around the horizon, you don't see it anymore. But that's a really good question. It is a little bit easier to see the moon during the day than the sun at night. Grayson.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
So everyone just said it's because of the sun bouncing off the moon. Now, let me do a little deeper into it. The way it is that the sun is about behind the Earth, and the sunlight is bouncing onto the moon and then going to the Earth.
Yeah, you're right. That's how we see it. It bounces from the sun to the moon to our eyes, and that's how we're going to see the moon during the night. So I don't think we quite talked about the other question, which was, why does the moon look like it's a different shape every night? Any ideas, Carter?
It's because that the sun reflects different parts of the moon, but we always see the same side of the moon. But because the same side of the moon is always facing the Earth.
Yes, very good. So that was going to be one of my questions later, was which part of the moon do we usually see? Carter's absolutely right. We always see the same side of the moon. There's the kind of the back side of the moon that we never saw until people started going up into space and being able to see the other side of the moon with satellites and things like that. But yeah, as far as the night sky, we are always actually seeing the same side of the moon, but we see different parts of the moon depending on where the sun is in relation to the moon. So I've got another kind of visual aid that'll help us a little bit with that. So this kind of shows you how the moon looks based on where the sun is. So if the sun is shining off to the side, then we're only going to see one half of the moon. If the moon and the sun are getting, you know, really far away from each other, then we're only going to see kind of that little crescent shape. When it's getting a little bit closer to the other side, we're going to start to see that gibbous shape that we see right there. Now, what I would have y'all do if we were doing this in person, because it's a good representation of what you can see, I would have you hold like a ball of some sort, like maybe a soft ball, and have a dark room with a light on one side. And if you hold that ball in front of you and kind of turn in a circle, you'll be able to see the light hitting it from the different angles, which makes it a lot easier to understand why we see these different shapes in the light that bounces off of the moon. But basically, it really just depends on where the sun is and how the moon is rotated, what shape we're going to see. So to kind of tie all this, I'll stop my screen sharing. Okay, so to make this a little bit easier, we are actually going to make kind of a little, a craft that we can use to show the phases of the moon. So y'all are gonna need your handouts for this part. Go ahead and grab the first 3 pages of your handout. You're gonna have this one that's got the moon on it. You're gonna have another one that's got all the phases. And then you have this shape right here. So we're gonna cut all of these out. Oh, I see there's something in the chat that I've just now seen. Yeah, y'all, I can now see the chat now that I'm not screen sharing anymore. So if y'all want to answer any or ask any questions in there, y'all are free to do so. Okay, so has everybody got their handout and some scissors? Because that's what we need right now. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to take my scissors. The first thing I want to do is cut out this square that's got the moon in it. I see some of y'all who've got your constellation cards. We're gonna work on those later, so you can set those aside. Right now, we're gonna take this square with the moon on it and we're gonna cut along the dotted lines, okay? So the whole square we're gonna cut out. All right, so go ahead and cut out both of those squares. You've got the 2 pages that have got a square on it. So go ahead and just cut both of those out. All right, we'll give everybody a minute to finish cutting those out. Okay, those of y'all that are done cutting out your squares, you can also cut out this shape right here. Just cut out this whole big black shape right around the edges. These edges here can get a little bit hard to cut. Just do your best. It's okay if it's not perfect.
We have to cut this black thing out though.
Yes, you do.
Where is it? Still cut my sofa. It would be better.
Okay, then you do it.
No, let me show you something. Let me show you something. Let me show you this. Look at this trick. Watch, watch. Watch on me. Look at this.
All right, how are y'all doing with the cutting?
There we go.
I'm doing good.
All right, awesome. It looks like a few people are getting close to done. I see some of y'all cutting out the big black shape. That's great.
You see how
I will give the next step once everybody's done cutting out just the squares and the black shape, because I want to make sure we get this next step right.
Oh, okay. Did we cut out the circle too?
Yes.
We'll do that in a minute just because I want to make sure everybody cuts out the right one.
Okay, so do we cut
Oh
this?
yeah, that,
okay.
Yes, you go ahead and cut off that half circle at the end.
You see how I cut it in half? Yeah, so you don't lose. I'll do that part. So you don't lose the,
Miss Camille, do we just cut out the black shape, the white part at the very end?
Yeah, cut off everything around the black shape as well as the little half circle at the end. You just want to cut the whole thing out of the white paper.
Am I supposed to cut out this?
We're gonna do that, yes, but I was gonna do that in a moment just so everybody knew to cut out the right one, but I'll go ahead and explain that. So you do need to cut out this circle, but make sure you're cutting out just the circle with the dots around it. Don't cut the moon out of the other paper. So to speed this along a little bit, once again, make sure you do have the sheet with the moon phases on it. You can fold it in half and then just cut around that dotted line and it'll cut the whole thing out. So I'll go ahead and do that to show you. You're cutting out the circle with the dotted lines around it. The sheet you have with the moon on it, that square, is great the way it is, but for the one with the dotted circle, we are cutting it out of the middle. Great job, guys. Awesome. Grayson's looks good. Looks like the Lopez Cruz family is working on theirs. Serenity's doing great. Perfect. Carter's got the circle cut out. Good job. You won't need that circle anymore, so you can just toss that to one side or wherever you're putting your scraps, but you do need the rest of this. All right, I'll give y'all another minute because there's a couple people that are still cutting that circle. So those of y'all that have cut out the circle out of the moon phases sheet, you can go ahead and take your sheet with the moon on it, take your glue, and I've got little lines on the top and bottom that say place glue here. So you're just gonna do a line of glue on the top and a line of glue on the bottom. And then I'll show you how to stick on your moon phases sheet. Okay, So once you've got your glue where it says place glue here, you're just going to take your other sheet, make sure you line them up real well, and you're just going to stack one on top of the other, making sure that that top sheet is upright. So when you're done, you'll have it like this. The glue is under where the little moon phases are. So I've got the glue on the top and the bottom, so I'm just kind of smoothing it with my fingers a little bit so it sticks nicely. And you've got holes in the sides, like that. Is this making sense so far? Okay, I've got some thumbs up. Thanks y'all. Awesome. I'll wait until everybody's got that glued. Okay, so I saw a couple of y'all were still cutting. Those of y'all that have not, that have just gotten done cutting and still need to glue, you're just gonna put glue where it says place glue here on the sheet with the moon on it, and then line up the little moon phases over the place glue here line. So you're gonna have what looks like this with the moon phases and the little moon shape showing through the back and our little holes on each side. All right, so for those of y'all that are with me up until this point, where did my slider go? There we go. You're going to slide in this piece of black paper from the side, and we can start to see the moon phases. So you can slide it through. We've got, let's see, what moon is that? We've got a new moon right now because it's all black, it's all dark. There's no light shining on the moon. And if we start pulling this across, we'll start getting a waxing gibbous. So we can move it across. And when you move it all the way across, you've got a full moon. Is everybody doing okay making this? Thank you, Brittany. Brittany says that's awesome. I know, I think it's really cool. I found this online and I thought it was a really cool little representation of the moon phases. Okay, for those of y'all that are done making your little moon slider, let's practice with it a little bit. So why don't y'all show me a, let's see, let's do, I guess it depends on which way you've slid it in, but do your best to make a waxing crescent. Can y'all make a waxing crescent? You might have to pull out the slider and put it in through the other side. Can everybody show me a waxing crescent? Great job. Kira's got hers looking good. Great job, Serenity. Good job, Melanie and Milani. That looks great. How about, let's try another one. Let's try a gibbous. You can do waxing or waning. Try to do a gibbous shape with your moon slider. Awesome, I see a couple. Good job, Melanie and Milani have got theirs. A gibbous is gonna look something like this. Good job, Grayson. We've got a gibbous shape. So the gibbous is kind of an opposite of a crescent. You can see everything but a little crescent off to one side that's still dark. The only shape that's a little bit hard to do with this slider is the waxing quarter or waning quarter. But what I would recommend is just fold your slider. If you just fold it in one place and put it in, you can make a waxing or waning quarter. Okay, so this is kind of our wrap up for the phases of the moon part of the lesson. We're about to move on to stars, but does anybody have any moon or moon phases questions right now? Grayson.
Why isn't there a solar eclipse on here?
That's a great question. Not a solar eclipse. I guess the solar eclipse would just look like a new moon, right? Well, it would be like a new moon, with the glow around the outside. That would be kind of hard to do with this slider, but if you figure out a way to do that, let me know, because that would look really cool. So an eclipse, Grayson, do you want to explain an eclipse since you mentioned it? Go ahead.
An eclipse is when the moon and the sun is where the earth and the sun has the moon right in between. So the sun only can get a little bit of the light around the moon to the earth.
Mm-hmm. It looks really cool.
And it only lasts for 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's really quick. We had one of those not too long ago. I know there was one like a few years ago, and there may have been another one recently, but I remember
this winter solstice.
You've seen the lunar and the solar. You've seen both.
Wow.
I've seen the lunar and the solar.
You were 2 years old when we saw the lunar eclipse.
Wow.
So another one.
There was a solar one, I think a few years ago, several years ago, I think. And I did manage to kind of see that one. Like I did the thing where you hold your hands like this, so it makes the like projection of it on the ground, because everybody bought up all of the lunar, all of the solar eclipse glasses, because you could buy glasses to make it safe to look at, because obviously ordinarily you don't want to be looking at the sun. But yeah, everybody bought them up where I was living, so I couldn't.
I've been through the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse.
The lunar, yeah.
And the winter solstice.
The solar one, my neighbor he's a welder, and so he made us glasses using the welding rings that they used to, and it's the same idea. They're a little bit heavy, but with the Kleenex box, we found that online. So that was his first big science project he made.
I saw the winter solstice too.
That sounds really cool. I wish I'd gotten to look at it like that. Carter, do you have a question?
So that was the
No, I just want to tell you something that happened in the North Pole, or probably the South. It was called a solar hurricane. My mom told me about it. A solar hurricane is like a tornado of electrons spinning around. Wow. It happened in a North or a South Pole.
What does that look like?
The winter solstice. King of stars.
I don't really know what it looks like. I think Mom showed me a picture, but I forgot what it looks like. I'm guessing that's yellow.
Okay, Grayson, did you know?
Yeah, I've seen it on my game. It's this big ring of kind of like smudged stars that's going for miles. The entire sky is this big smudge of long stars.
Wow, that sounds really cool. There's so many cool things that stars can do.
I think it's called
we saw it on
there's
Top
one
Trumps
like it, but it's called the winter solstice. It doesn't look the same, but it's where the North Star. It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
I
need to keep a better eye out for this type of thing.
That game that we have, it's called Top Trumps. It's a card game where they look at all the different things like in space or different subjects. It's really neat because you can learn, and it shows kind of which one has a bigger value is how the game's played, but it has a lot of facts in it. That's why he remembers so much space stuff is from that game.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds really cool. Okay, so based on that, you might know the answers to some of these questions. We're going to talk about stars now, and then we'll do our little constellation cards here in a second. So who can tell me what a star is? Grayson?
It's a giant ball of hot gas.
Yeah, basically it's just hot gas, sometimes like dust a little bit, but it's mainly just a burning ball of gas.
It's just like the sun, it's a star.
Yes, yeah, the sun is a star. That's exactly right. And there are actually a lot of different kinds of stars. You might think they all kind of look the same in the sky.
There's a red one, a blue one, and then the orange one, which is the one that we have. The blue one's the hottest. I think
I actually have my little list here of all of the different types of stars, so we'll go through those real quick. Serenity, did you have a question?
Some people think that some stars are actually planets that are in space that are really far and they look like stars.
Yes, that's right. So sometimes you can actually see, I think, Venus in the sky, and it looks kind of red. It looks sort of like a dull red star. And you're right, that is a planet, but it looks like a star because you can see it in the sky among all of the other stars. But stars are usually classified into categories depending on how big they are, how hot they are, what color they burn, and also how long they because a star is only going to like live for a certain amount of time. Live is a bad way to put it because they're not alive, but it's only going to burn for a certain period of time, and then it's going to kind of collapse on itself and burn out. So there's lots of different types depending on that. Our sun, like we said, it is a star. It's a solar type star, which is a large yellow star that's stable for a really long time. So those are one of the longest living stars. There's also hot blue stars, which are larger than stars like our sun, but last a lot less time. There's red dwarf stars, which are smaller, cooler, and last longer. Red giant stars, which are large and not quite as hot. When I say a cool star, that just means comparatively, they're still on fire, but some of them just burn a little bit less hot than others. White dwarf stars are hot, but really small and kind of faint. And a black hole is what happens when a star collapses entirely. So technically a black star or a black hole is like a dying or dead star, but I went ahead and put it in the list. Now, do y'all know what it's called when stars form a picture in the sky? What do we call that? Anybody know? Journey?
A constellation.
Very good. We call it a constellation. So a constellation is just kind of humans looking into the sky and thinking, that kind of looks like this animal or this person. Grayson, did you have a question?
I heard people have been looking through big telescopes and scientists have found a black star. They don't know if it's even a star. It's on fire and it's black. They think it's some kind of black hole or something.
That's really cool.
It's running at 2 trillion degrees. It's hot.
Yeah, they get really hot. I wrote that down because I'm interested in looking that up later.
Than our sun. I don't know if it's even true. You never can believe anything you see on the internet.
It is good to fact check things, yeah. But it is possible that it could be hotter than the sun. The sun's pretty hot, but you know, there are stars of lots of different temperatures. All right, so like I said, constellations are not like, you know, the stars are not intentionally making these pictures. This is just people looked at the stars, especially a really long time ago when we didn't know very much about stars. People kind of wanted explanations for why they were arranged in the sky the way that they looked. So people like the ancient Greeks and Romans and ancient Egyptians came up with different stories for why the stars were arranged the way they were. And they made names of different kind of arrangements of stars, which we now call constellations. So a lot of the constellations and stars, if they have a name, they've had that name for thousands of years. Because like I said, people a really long time ago gave them those names. Oh, there's a question in the chat. What is the name of the game that Grayson's mom mentioned? Yeah, Corianne, if you wouldn't mind putting the name of that game in the
Top Trumps. Top Trumps. There's a bunch of
Trumps.
Oh, yes, Top Trumps. I'm going to grab it to show real quick. I'm going to look.
Trump cards? Is Trump?
No, it's a game. I'm going to find it and I'll show you all the picture in just a minute.
I think the name is Top Trumps. I put that in the chat if that's okay. Cool. Yeah, we'd love to see that because that sounds like a really cool game.
Really fun game.
Yeah, it sounds fun, and it's cool that you learned so many facts about the stars and the planets from it. I wish I knew a little bit more about this stuff. I like knowing some stuff about space, but I don't feel like I know a whole lot.
This game in the cards.
Okay. Top Trumps space.
Wait, I just want to show something to everybody. Let me open up the thing. and it should be in here. And then I just want to show that kid that was asking about that. North Pole thing.
One other thing we just found, and I really love these. They're $4 on Amazon. They're called Dover coloring books, and this is the constellations of the night sky, and it shows all these cool pictures that they get to color. And for $4, it gives so much information on the different constellations, and then we have one on planets too.
I was wondering about that kid that was talking about that North Pole thing. Is this what it looked like?
That was Carter that was talking about the what was it, in a storm?
Look at all those smudges.
It's solar hurricane.
Solar hurricane. That's so cool.
This is a Polaris A. I think that's different.
This is a Polaris A.
But I bet you they might have it in here.
I think it's the same thing. There's one's in the North Pole and one's. But this should be what it is.
Anyway, these cards are really fun. You play them together, and so you like each put a card out, kind of like war, and then whoever has the highest of whatever you pick, like temperature or something. So it's really fun, great way to learn, I think.
Mine is yeah. I was glad that Carter found that, because it doesn't happen for it. This same thing will happen in the next 38,861. No, it's so big. 38 something years, 38 million years or so.
All right, it looks like, I wish we got to say goodbye to Kira. She just messaged she had to go. Okay, so we're running a little bit short on time, so we're gonna finish our constellation cards real quick. These I just wanted to talk to y'all about for a moment. I just put some of kind of the major constellations on these cards with a little bit of history about them. So let's go ahead and cut those out, and I'm going to read y'all some of the information about them while you cut them out. So you just want to go ahead and cut around the dotted lines, and you're going to have different cards. So I'm going to start with Ursa Major, which also contains the Big Dipper. If any of y'all know any constellations, the Big Dipper is probably one of the ones that you can recognize because it's one of the more famous or well-known ones. But it's part of Ursa Major, which is a constellation that kind of looks like a bear, or people thought it looked like a bear thousands of years ago. So Ursa Major represents Callisto from Greek mythology, who was a beautiful woman that Zeus turned into a bear. So the legend has it that he picked her up by her tail. Bears don't have very long tails, as we know, but Zeus grabbed her by her tail and threw her into the sky. And that's why she's a constellation. And that's also why she has kind of a stretched out tail. So when you see pictures of Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, they're bears with kind of weirdly long tails because they were thrown up into the sky. Okay, so after Ursa Major, we've got Cygnus. So I'll go ahead and read y'all that. Cygnus represents a swan from a Greek myth about two friends racing chariots in space. They came too close to the sun and their chariots started to melt. One of the friends landed in a river and the other wanted to save him, but he didn't know how to swim. So Zeus, who is one of the main gods in Greek mythology, Zeus turned him into a swan so that he could dive down and save his friend. So to kind of immortalize that, when that happened, Zeus made Cygnus the swan into a constellation in the sky to kind of honor him for saving his friend. Now, another one that we've got is Orion. So Orion represents a Greek hunter from Greek mythology, and he's said to be the son of Poseidon, who was the god of the sea, and he was able to walk on water because his father was the god of the sea. So near the end of his life, Mother Earth sent a giant scorpion to kill Orion, and after his death, Zeus placed him among the constellations. And then your last constellation is Scorpius, who has a little bit to do with Orion's story. Scorpius represents the giant scorpion that was said to have killed Orion. So Orion and Scorpius are visible during opposite times of the year. So people believe that Orion runs away and can no longer be seen whenever Scorpius is visible. because it's always the same stars in the sky, but you see different ones depending on how the Earth has rotated, or even different parts of the year we see different stars in the sky. But it's really cool that even though stars do change and they're, you know, like we said, they die after a certain period of time, but we can still see the same constellations in the sky that the Romans and Greeks saw way back in the day, because it takes a really long time and millions of years for the stars to really change very much. Okay, so did y'all get some of your star cards punched out? Did you get some of them cut out? Great. Okay,
I got all mine.
Perfect, good job. So what y'all can do, you can just kind of keep them as like little reference sheets just for fun. Or if you want to, you could actually get a pencil. Let me see if I actually have a pencil sharp enough to do this. Let's see, here we go. You can take a pencil and you can kind of poke holes where the little circles are on your star cards. What I'm doing is I'm kind of putting 2 fingers behind the star card behind the hole I'm going for. And I just poke a little hole in each one of those circles. And once you've poked all of those holes, you can turn off the lights in your room and take a flashlight and shine it through those holes. And that's going to make the picture of the constellation on your wall, so you can kind of see how it would look in the night sky. I'm not going to demonstrate that because I don't think it would show up very well on Zoom, but y'all can try that after this if you would like. Are there any questions about constellations or stars? Grayson.
There we go. I've noticed that constellations look like this, but sometimes without any stars being there, they imaginary make a head.
Like on Orion?
Yeah, because pictures they just right ahead without any stars being there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes you'll see like the name of what a constellation is supposed to look like, and you kind of look at it and it's like, that doesn't really look like that to me. Like, honestly, I feel like Ursa Major to me looks a little bit more like a camel or like a deer than a bear. But
with a very, very long head with no head.
Yeah.
Got that lungs.
The ancient Greeks and Romans had, I guess, a lot of time on their hands, and they had very good imaginations. So that's how we ended up with these pictures in the sky.
And we ended up with these weird horse bears.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that we can still see those.
I don't think this is the most beautiful woman in the world.
Well, not anymore, because she got turned into a bear.
Yeah, she got turned into a very ugly bear.
Oh no. Well, at least she's stars in the sky. That's pretty cool. Even if you don't end up a very pretty combination, I think it's pretty cool to end up being a constellation. I did also want to mention, since we talked about the different types of stars, there's one star that's Orion's shoulder. It's this shoulder right here that's holding up, like his back arm holding up, I guess. That is a red giant star, which, let's see, those are the large stars that are a little bit cooler than others. And it's kind of a red color. So when you see Orion in the sky, you might notice that that one shoulder looks a little bit red. And it's actually a star that's named Betelgeuse. It's not spelled like Beetlejuice like the movie. It's spelled like, I'm putting it in the chat so y'all can see. But yeah, that's the name of that star, and it's pronounced like Beetlejuice. So there's another fun fact for you. All right, are there any other questions before we wrap up? Grayson?
He has Beetlejuice dripping down his shoulder. He has Beetlejuice on his shoulder. I'm never gonna be able to get that out of my head. Now there's a constellation with a hunter man that has Beetlejuice dripping down his shoulder.
You could also remember it as like, you know, he's a hunter. It's almost like he got hit with an arrow in his shoulder and it's a red star because it's like a wound. I don't know. That's what I would think of. Okay, so before I let y'all go, I did want to remind y'all that we do have Dia de los Niños coming up. That's an event on April 20th on Facebook Live. You can log on at 4:30. We have our program called Dia de los Niños coming up, and that's on Facebook Live. The name of the program's in Spanish. It means Day of Children's Day. Oh, cool. And so we're going to be on Facebook Live on at 4:30 on April 20th. I'll put all of this in the chat just so y'all can remember it. Come and get a kit for that program. We have the Dia de los Niños kits at all branches of the library, so you can get it at Maine, Warmack, or Shotwell. We all have them. And the day after, on April 21st, you can come to Bowles Park, which is the park right outside Shotwell Library. We're going to have a community art project for you to help us with. You're going to get to add your handprint to a mural. You can take a picture with a tree. We actually have an arrangement right now where if you come for that event and you take a picture with a tree will be planted like in your honor. So make sure y'all come and do that. I'm going to put the information for that in the chat so that y'all have it. What was that?
What day?
It is April 20th, 4:30 p.m. on Facebook Live. Get a kit at any library branch, like I said, and then April 21st from 2 to 5 p.m. outside Shotwell Library. That's like the outdoor extension of that program. We're going to be doing some fun outdoor activities on April 21st from 2 to 4 p.m. And to sign up, you do need to register for the outdoor portion. I'm putting the link for that in the chat as well.
So the kit for that deal just is available now. So when we go today, we can pick up that one too?
That's right. Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So they're available now. You can also sign up for the outdoor portion of it. That link that I just put in the chat, bit.ly/GPDIA, is to sign up to do the outdoor part of the program.
Yeah, we will be there. Unless it gets to be 100 degrees, then we won't.
Yeah, we're hoping it won't be that hot that day and that it won't rain. That would be ideal.
Awesome.
Yeah. It'll be really fun. It's going to be nice. Okay, so does anybody have any other questions before we end for today? All right, well, thank y'all so much for coming to Homeschool Hub. I will see y'all again next week. Not sure what we're doing next time, but I will get y'all that information as soon as I can. And so you can just keep an eye on your email for that. Thank y'all. I'll see y'all next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.